Out of the room a few minutes. We'll go ahead and call us back into session. One of the things I do want to remind you of before we get started is the closer you move the mic towards your mouth, it works a lot better. And we've had several requests for people to speak into the microphone. They couldn't hear us. So if you'll just move it a little closer to you, I know mine gets away from me sometimes, and it's easy to do, but I'd appreciate you doing that. Let's go back on back to our resolutions. We had finished up all of our public hearings, and we got our planning commission agenda done. He's absent until he comes back. All right. We do have several special recognitions tonight. In our special recognition and proclamations, we have the Summer 2021 Report to the People from our Agriculture Extension Director, Mr. Shelton. We appreciate him a lot, and it's in your packet on page 36 if you'd like to review that. Our next item is Bright Ridge is here this evening. Mr. Dykes, if you will come forward to the podium. I know he had a report for us.
Good evening. Thank you all for your time and for the opportunity to come this evening. Appreciate also last month you moving forward to this month. Some of the things that Red Dog is looking at, and believe you me, they want to be a good neighbor, and I really think that their goal is to get something done. I know there's been concerns that it'll go on and nothing will, but believe you me, also Bright Ridge extremely wants to make sure that something's done and to make all the folks down there content and happy with what's there. I would add a couple of things I just want to clarify. When the original, our folks submitted the permit for the rezoning, and it mentioned that blockchain data center and solar, when they submitted that, they put down the potential uses for that land, because at the time there was no guarantee that there would be a blockchain data center, because it was an RFP process that we actually were competing with a bunch of utilities for that opportunity. And we thought the other opportunity might be to put some solar. At the same time, we were talking to, there's a neighbor that owns the land that adjoins our substation on the backside, and we had actually offered to purchase that land to add some solar there. And they just wanted more than we felt comfortable bringing to our board to purchase that land. And that's why, if you look, there's 22 acres, 11 on each side of the drive, and with the slopes and stuff, that's why there isn't additional solar there, because of the small thing. One of the things that we have done, if you're very aware, is last month, a few months ago, we had the groundbreaking for 9 megawatts of solar that we were building. And also our board in a workshop is looking to consider additional 14 megawatts of solar. So we are putting more of that onto our system. The other thing, and just so Ms. Lambert will know, and she and I have known one another ever since I came here, and just really enjoyed chatting with her, and she sent me some very nice cards just on some history and stuff. But TVA's generation mix in 2021 only had 13% coal. 59% of their generation mix in 2021 is actually carbon-free. Between the nuclear, the solar, with the hydro that they have a significant amount of hydro, and with the wind turbines that they purchase. So they are moving more towards that, with the goal at some point in the future they will eliminate coal-fired generation completely on their system. So that, just want to make sure you're aware of where TVA is moving with that. Along with what is going on down with the grid side, and I'll probably hear me refer to a grid from time to time, because that's what the original group was called, is with Red Dog. We also have been working very closely with them. Also want to mention to Steve, who was speaking, the engineer that he's been talking so kindly about, Sam Ford, who has been down there in the community and working diligently with Red Dog to move forward. One of the things that we would also say that, since it's Red Dog's actual facility, they have been working with an engineering firm. They've been working with some other firms about how do you reduce this sound and how you get it, muffled down. And along those lines, I certainly can't speak for them on what all they're doing. And that's why tonight I wanted to bring them here and allow them to really walk you through some of the things they're doing, what their goals are, and what some of the things they want to do for the community. So at this time, if it's all right with you, I'd like to introduce Todd Napier, who is with Red Dog, and he will go through some of the things that they've been looking into and some of the things that they're continuing to work with the firms that they brought on. And I appreciate Mr. Drake also looking into some firms and stuff, and I know we've passed some information along from him, but also the Red Dog is working diligently with some groups, and we'll discuss a path forward for you. So if I could get Mr. Napier to...
So, good evening. As Mr. Dykes mentioned, my name is Todd Napier, and I'm here on behalf of Red Dog Technologies, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Grid Infrastructure that he also mentioned. With me here this evening are two of my co-workers, Ed Medford and Phil Hicks. It may be that they may have to help me out with a few of these responses, but I wanted to begin by assuring you that we are heard and that we are taking very seriously the concerns of those who live by the Red Dog facility regarding the level of sound that's being produced, and that it is very serious to us. It is both our company's culture and desire to be good neighbors, and that we're here this evening to enter into dialogue. I know that said they hadn't heard anything from us, and certainly we're here to do that with the community as well as with you all. And we're committed to taking all reasonable steps to address these concerns of the sound, the community's concerns as well as yours. So as more work's to be done, our number one priority is to deal with this issue of sound. We need to identify what the most effective measurements are and to provide meaningful noise mitigation, and so that we can begin to get those implemented immediately or as soon as practical. So far as we've taken some very important steps, which Mr. Dykes mentioned, the first of which is we have hired a consulting firm called WSP. WSP is an international consulting firm with expertise in acoustical engineering. Their scope of work for us, which includes measurements and evaluation of the baseline sound readings. They've begun some of that work. To develop an acoustical model for how this sound interacts in the area that surrounds us in the environs, and then provide us recommendations on the most effective sound mitigation measures that can reasonably be implemented. While WSP has begun to work on this project, it's going to take a little bit of time for them to complete that. In fact, they've got some more data collection to be done, which will, I think, occur here within the next week, on top of what they have now. And so they need that to be able to get their arms around the existing conditions as well, because they're actively building out a model to simulate the area and all the topography as well as the vegetation and structures in an area. So this upfront work still has to be completed before they can complete their study and then ultimately provide their recommendations and guidance to us on sound mitigation measures. They've told us that this could take up to 60 days to complete this work, but we are pressing them to, in daily working with them to provide us feedback as we go along so that it may not take that long for us to be able to begin some of these mitigation measures. But when it's complete, we're definitely going to come back to you and provide you what they found, what mitigation steps they've recommended, and which of those we've already begun by that point, and what our plans are for going forward. In the meantime, we can come back. I'm happy to do that. Come back to you at your August County Commission meeting to share with you what we've done, what steps we've taken, where we are. It's our desire and objective to really have a solid plan that's based on measurable data, acoustical engineering principles and designs, all of which will allow us to make better and informed decisions. Meanwhile, we've also been working with a company that has a local presence, which is a German fan manufacturing company that came to your community or to this area a few years ago. EBM Paps, they have a manufacturing facility in Johnson City area. And they've been doing some testing on some of our existing fans in order to provide us with better understanding. So they have expertise in fans and airflow technology. And they've actually even provided us a proposal to look at that would consider the replacement of some of our fans with some of their technology and their controls that we believe could make some difference. And we've provided that information to our engineering consultant as well. So, the bottom line is we're committed to finding and implementing a workable solution, and we really are. The plan is not to say, hey, maybe they'll get used to it. We've not got a problem. We're not just walk away. That is absolutely not in our plan. It's not who we are. We're committed to keeping you informed. And regarding the WSP study, as well as ongoing work, we also have set up a dedicated email address because there was a lot talked about communication. I have a stack of cards here that, as well as my coworkers have, that we'll pass out. And it's a way for people to, at least for right now, to communicate to us. It's a dedicated email address. It can even give comments, concerns, questions. We're monitoring that daily. And we'll be able to get back to people in a timely manner regarding the information. We're also looking at standing up plan to stand up a website for Red Dog Technologies where we'd be able to provide information. But in the meantime, we'll have this email address. And the email address is pretty simple. It's comments with an S at reddogtn.com. Again, that's comments with an S at reddogtn.com. So, we also want to, we want to be part of this community for a long time, and a good part of this community for a long time. And we want to, looking at ways to, on an ongoing basis, set up a two-way communication between us, between the local community and the broader community, that we, can be a positive influence in part of the community. Regardless of, how long it takes us to get all that stuff, we're planning to stay in touch, and we do want to hear from you all. We want to hear from people who live in the area. And at this point, I just want to, thank you for this opportunity. I thank Mr. Dykes for his words and for you all allowing us to come and make this comments tonight. So that concludes my prepared remarks.
All right. Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Davenport?
Yes, thank you for coming.
Sure.
Make sure this is on. Thank you for coming here tonight. We appreciate that. I'm sure you're working on the problem. You have these sites, many different locations, I'm assuming.
We have 2, soon to be 3, and soon to be 4.
Okay, is this the first
It's a
time?
fairly new business for us. This is not our first location, but it's we're a fairly new company.
Okay. Are you having this kind of issue at the other sites?
No, sir.
Is the noise different? Is it larger? Or what's different?
This is a larger site than our other active existing site, so, that may be part of it. This is a little bit different design, than we have at our other location.
Okay, so you're not getting complaints to the other side. What's the sound measuring at your other sites compared to this site?
I don't have that.
Okay. And in your project, will you measure this and say, before we implement, our goal is to get the decimal level to this point? Is that what you're hoping to see in the study? And
Sure. I mean, that's going to be one of the important that, I don't know that we can ever get to the point of no sound. Business versus business not being there, but, making sure that we understand, what can we achieve. So I don't have an exact decibel level to give you. Sound is, and I don't mean to talk down or belittle anybody, sound's measured in decibels, which is a logarithmic scale. So, it's not linear. So, 30 is not half as much as 60. It's like this. So every 10 decibels is almost twice the level of the previous. So I don't have a sound level. We're going to be relying on the expertise of WSP to provide us some of those direction.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Ford?
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank you for coming tonight
Sure.
and giving some explanation to some of the noise. But the question I have, this has been a problem for some time. It seems to be getting worse all the time instead of better. And what I want to know is, before you came here tonight, was there any outreach or any way for these residents here to get in touch with you to express their concerns? Maybe where you can get back and forth. I know you come up with a website tonight, but I just wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, prior to that, we've been working through Bright Ridge. We're their customer. Part of the process of reaching out was Bright Ridge, and we're their tenants. So, we have been primarily communicating through Bright Ridge and taking their lead. So prior to tonight, I guess to get right to your question, was there a direct way for them to get in touch? I would say probably not easily.
Commissioner Malone?
Again, I'll offer my thanks for your being here.
Sure.
I've made a point of trying to visit that location several times at different times during the day, and I know between my first visit and subsequent visits, the site seemed larger. And it may be that when I was first there, it was still under construction, but is what's currently constructed there, is it complete? Is there?
So there is the capacity for us on the power system to expand. We're not going to expand. We've halted any further action until we get this situation resolved.
And then I'm glad to hear there are remediation efforts. I'm just curious because at some level, and I may have a question or two for Mr. Dietz, but who is bearing the bulk of the cost associated with the remediation efforts? Because there is the concern in the community that ultimately the ratepayers are paying a substantial portion of the remediation efforts. I thought you might just address that.
Those costs will be borne by Red Dog Technologies.
But I would assume at some level, there is some added expense for Bright Ridge if they've got people down there working and answering people's questions. I don't know if Red Dog's reimbursing them for that or not.
I can't answer that question.
And I would say that right now, pretty much our engineer who has been down there, and early on, I think he has spoken to numerous folks in the community, and we've actually set up and had been taking readings ourselves. The impact, when we first set up to take a lot of the readings was, of course, when the cicadas came, so we've got a baseline with those critters there, and then now get a baseline of where it's at now. And so from that standpoint, the work that is really being done is just our engineer going down and talking to these folks, and then talking to folks as it comes up. So.
Thank you. I have maybe just another question or two, but through the course of this, one of the things I've heard from some of the neighbors is that nobody's getting anything out of this. And I thought you might speak to how this does help Bright Ridge or,
Yeah.
because again, somebody's certainly paying the price. We hear from these neighbors the price that they're
Yeah.
paying.
No, and one of the things that we look at on anything that we do related to economic development is bringing industries and stuff that can, of course, bring revenue to the electric utility. And the reason we do that is to help us stabilize rates, so we're not going every so many years and saying, hey, we need a rate increase. So part of that was looked at with this, is we knew that some other utilities had built some of these, or had them built, and it brings some rate structure to us that brings in additional revenue. Now, one of the impacts that we were looking at was, hey, this will be additional revenues to help us stabilize rates. I can tell you that one of the good things that came out of what is being made there now is we lost 2 large industries on our system this year, and this is actually, covering the losses of that revenue. So again, it's doing similar to what we think. It's helping stabilize rates for our customers.
The last item I had is more a statement than anything, but, I have gone back, I think many of us have gone back and looked at the request to rezone this place and this site. And what was described for this site is, I think, different than what we've ended up with. And I'm a little disappointed at that. It referenced computers and small fans. And having been down there, the fans that are there are not small fans. And I feel like I was not well educated on the front end about what was going to be there. And in fact, small fan was perhaps a little misleading. And I don't know where that came from, but I feel bad about the basis upon which we made the rezoning decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know in the request to rezone, it talked about blockchain data center, which is what, this thing, even though it's mining Bitcoins, it could be any type of data center. It's going to have, if you look at the microprocessors, have the small fans on them. As they had mentioned, and I, of course, can't address theirs on the adjustments in design when they came there, but, as far as the fan sizes. So I don't think, I can tell you there was no one on the Bright Ridge side that certainly was looking to mislead or anything. It was, it was a blockchain data center which has microprocessors and the cooling requirements for that. So.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wheeler?
Jeff, I wanted to ask a couple of things. One, as far as any additional facilities, our understanding, what we were told, but not from you all, when this first came to us, was that you all were not taking steps forward with another facility.
Right, yeah.
Is that still the case?
As soon as we looked at this issue, and of course until they work the issue out and resolve it to the benefit of the community, we certainly weren't looking at any additional sites. There was an additional RFP, and we didn't submit for that RFP that came out. So
That's the Lamar site.
that was the site I would say was probably being looked at. One thing when we look at it, it's not, I heard they say you put these in the most remote site or anything there. What you really have to look at when you're looking to bid, as you would with any industry coming in that you might be bidding, you have to look at the capacity of the substations. So we had to find what substation has the capacity that one of these sites could be built next to. So it wasn't selecting something that would be, a most remote area, and I know that has been stated several times, but really there were several sites, but then it's which one works best for them, which one's the easiest to build. But also the most important thing from the Bright Ridge side is which substation has capacity so that you don't have to build and add additional transformers and stuff in there and incur a bigger cost to supply that for them. So it was really designed around, we had several substations that had capacity, and then which one has the capacity that they're looking for.
But at this point, until this is resolved, you all don't plan to move forward?
No, sir. No, and again, there was the RFP that went out. We didn't submit anything on that RFP, so I would imagine that, I'm not sure what their plans on for building more, but I would guess that we didn't get involved in that RFP, so.
And I think, too, that a lot of people that may be coming to this commission think that there's limited, once we rezone, there's not a lot we can do with regard to this. And your commend you for what you all do in the community. But I would, I was on the planning commission at the time, and would reiterate, what has been said about the application, and that there's a lot of regret there. That was the point. But of course, all we're doing in the rezone is not looking at the specific use, but the general use. So I appreciate, and I think what you're basically telling me is you all are making a commitment to before we have this anywhere else in the community, to look at this issue and get it resolved.
I think that the discussions we've had with Red Dog is they really want to kind of bring this thing to a position of where it is a model of what would be customer-friendly and community-friendly, and I think that's been our discussion with them, is now we have an opportunity to make this thing a model and to work on that, and I think that's why they have brought in, the acoustic engineering firm to look at this closely. That way, they're bringing in the experts in the field. They've also, and again, it's something that Todd didn't mention, I can never speak for Red Dog, but I think I can express this, is the local firm that they've worked with actually have taken those fans and taken them to their site and are running tests on those fans at their site. And through that, they're coming back with suggestions on here's how you could change them and reduce the sound significantly, or here's how you could adjust these. Many times sometimes it's fan blade adjustments, because the sound is basically the airflow going through them. So they're looking at a lot of things that can be changed or changed out that would make it better. And I compliment the local firm for stepping up and saying, we think we can help you with this sound issue. So, Bright Ridge's goal is to make sure that we get it to a point where the community is happy. And again, we're not moving forward or talking to them about any additional sites at all at this time. So,
and related to the current site, I heard gasps in this audience tonight when it was mentioned that there's capacity out there for additional units. Do you all have any way to, and we've been given assurance, and I appreciate that they're not planning to build anymore. But if I lived out there, and I had been one of the people that was told, that's why we built it in the middle of nowhere, I wouldn't feel real comfortable with that, unfortunately. And that's just the way it is, and we've got to deal with that. So my question to you on their behalf is there anything, does the Power Board have any control over that, including providing the power to say we're not going to build any additional units till we get this resolved?
yeah. And I think that's their commitment, and ours is really, let's get this resolved. Their original goal or contract was for some additional units, but with and as Mr. Napier had mentioned, they have pretty much stopped that process until they can get this resolved, and I think that's the commitment on their part to us.
Commissioner Williams?
If you can't get it resolved, will you close the company down?
Ma'am, I would love to stand here and tell you I could do that right now, but that becomes, I'd have to discuss that on the legal side of it. So that goes beyond just.
Commissioner Ford?
Mr. Rice, I lived in that community for about 20 years. There's no better place on earth I know of. And I'll tell you, these are good folks. And I look around in this room here tonight, and I see a lot of dissatisfaction. And I voted on the conception when this came through, there's going to be a solar entity, not a big corn operation. It wasn't mentioned to me. It was, I didn't pick up on it. But I just think I think that the number one way to think about this, would you want to live there 24/7, listen to that? It'd run you crazy to lose. And I appreciate the fact that the Red Dog is doing so, is taking steps to try to correct this. I really do. But I feel like somewhere down the road, but I don't know if it's Bright Ridge, Red Dog, or Black Dog, or somebody, but somebody misled this county commission I don't think that, there'd been a one meeting in this room would have voted for that if they knew what was going to happen. And I couldn't live down there, I couldn't stand it. I don't know about you, or you, if you had to live in that environment. Because when I lived down there, I had a farm, and it was quiet as it could be. That's why I wanted to live there. I just feel like we've been misrepresented somewhere in the line.
Yes.
Commissioner Tester?
I was wondering if you could tell us how long your contract or lease with Red Dog is?
I think the current contract is 5 years, 6 months. And, it can be renewed at that point, but the current contract was a 5 year, 6 months.
And is there any kind of clauses in there about getting out of it early on either side? And you may not be able to answer that off the top of your head, I don't know.
No, I would say
Not
probably
right
not.
on the spot, just-
Oh, no, I'm used to being put on the spot. I have a great board.
Let's direct, Commissioner Tester has the floor right now, so go ahead, Mr. Dox, and answer his question.
Yeah. Within the contract, I'm not sure that there is that without looking at it closer, that on some things, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Huffine?
I'll direct this to Mr. Napier. We heard a lot tonight about the communication. So first, I want to thank you for establishing communication. I will encourage you to continue to explore more avenues of communication. I think that's going to be extremely helpful, especially people in that community.
Yes, sir.
The churches that are close by, I'm sure they'd be helpful in facilitating that. The question I had, you originally said you all are willing to take reasonable steps to resolve this issue. Understand that you can't really quantify that now until all the studies are in and you identify what the decibel levels are and what the potential, but I guess my question really is from the neighbors, they're going to expect a very significant reduction in the sound. And as a percentage, what would you think your goal is to be able to reduce that noise level from and to?
I understand, and I appreciate your question, but I don't have an answer. I don't, not without some better guidance from the folks that we've hired to help us understand what's there and what can be reasonably achieved.
So the reasonable steps probably was a misstatement because you've not identified what reasonable is yet.
I don't have an answer to that question.
Commissioner Jones?
I think it'd be the same.
Do you have a timeline? When will the study be finished? And
Yes, ma'am. We expect the study to be completed within approximately 60 days.
okay, and then from there, you would have the recommendations.
We'll have the recommendations, but if we, can receive some recommendations prior to that, we don't necessarily have to wait that long to begin implementation.
Since you all will be returning in August, is there, what can we expect in a report in August, or what boxes are we ready to check off in August? So we'll be anticipating the hearing.
We should be able to report level of progress made by our consultant by that time. Any information that they provided that will have given us information as to some of the steps that we can take, or maybe potentially some steps that we have already begun.
Okay, all right. All right, is there any further questions? Seeing none, we appreciate you all being here. We'll be looking forward to next month and hopefully be taking those steps.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, our next item this evening is the receive and consider the minutes from the June 28th, 2021 meeting. Commissioner Tester?
Mr. Chairman, there were several issues that I brought to the attention of the clerk and the county attorney last week on these minutes, and my understanding is we're going to work on a draft amended version and redistribute that to the commission. So in light of that, I would like to make a motion, we postpone the accepting of these minutes until next month.
Okay, motion to postpone till next month. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Ford. Questions or discussion? All in favor of postponing till next month, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. We'll postpone those and bring them back next month for your consideration. All right, on to the county mayor's report. Mayor Grandy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have anything specific tonight. We've heard a lot of different things. Probably too much for me to read. Does anybody have any questions?
All right, Mayor, we appreciate you. Our next, you will find the trustees and many of the officials' reports. They're on different pages under the county mayor's report. Our county attorney report, Ms. Wilkinson, you're down on the floor tonight.
I am, and there's, before you go to me though, the trustee does have his report.
Oh.
And wanted, I think, to present them, but actually had asked me, and I apologize, I don't have a mic. I hope that doesn't mess that up, that's because I moved, you all right? The trustee actually has a separate duty, I don't have my notes in front of me, but in addition to these reports that he brings to you annually, which are included in the budget committee minutes, I think pages 91 is the annual report, and then pages 131 and maybe 132 are those annual reports from the budget committee. Your trustee has a separate obligation to bring you information every July. So I would ask that you consider, and we can just make sure the minutes reflect, that the commission has accepted that information from the July report, and he'll kind of walk you through that, but he was making sure that he tendered that information separately and fully for his statutory duties. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Good evening. I know you've been here a while, and I'll be brief. The reports I laid out on your table earlier are included in the packet. I'm going to go over quickly. And if you'll just turn to page 129 in your packet, there's a couple of introductory pages, but the first page shows our tax collections for the prior years. But I would call your attention to the top of the page in the middle. For 2020, the tax collections at the end of June were 97.3%. The same time last year, for the 2019 tax, that we were 95%. So you see that number 99, but we've been collecting since that time. But the same time last year would have been 95%. We were 97.3 this year at the end of June. The next page is under delinquent taxes. It shows that as of the end of June, end of the year, where we were. 2020 property tax, we had $1.4 million outstanding. We were $1,040,000 less than where we were at the same period last year, and about 1,400 parcels less. So that number is going down. Personal property, again, you see we reported $289,000 past due. We were down $37,000 or 62 parcels, and public utilities about flat. It was down about $2,000. On the bottom of the page is personal property numbers for 2019, real property and personal property that was turned over to the clerk and master's office. We turned over $249,000 on real property less this year than we did last year. So, more taxes being paid, and that's the indication by the percentage of taxes that we collected there. On page 132 is a report that our county attorney was talking about. One of the reports we addressed is the correction report. This is what we get from the assessor's office of any property that's been added or deleted from the tax roll, whether it's by acquisition of property from the state or the county, and takes the property off, whether it's rollback taxes, rollback pickup taxes, or change in billing. We had a net change in there of minus $42,000 that come off the tax roll, compared to $61,000 to minus $61,000 last year. So there again, that's a better report than we saw in the previous year. The next page is on our tax relief. We're up 34 individuals on tax relief this year than we were last year. We're at 2,436. I would remind you that the state of Tennessee put in $478,000, almost $479,000 into the tax relief program, and Washington County matches what the state does, and you put in $390,966, and you can see the prior years right below there. What we did last year, $446 for the state and $370 for the county.
And the next report is on page 134. It's a local option sales tax. I changed it with a recommendation from the Recommendation Budget Committee, Commissioner Malone. We added a line there on how this is broken down, but the Washington County General Fund gets no money from our local option sales tax. You'll see where it's broken down to the schools. I won't go through the numbers there, but the total is $64 million is what the local option sales tax was in the last fiscal year, compared to $56,700 the previous year. So you see that your tax rates, sales tax have been going up, the local option's been greater, therefore the more it's been going to the schools and the cities and everything, but Washington County General Fund accepts no money from that. And the last report is this report was, I think, was on page 91. This is a mandatory report that we turn in of all the county funds at the end of the year, and that's just a standard report that submitted to our auditors in the state as well. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I hope it wasn't too fast, but I know you've been here a while, but I would welcome any question that you may have. If not, thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I'd have knew you was here a while ago, I'd have called you back into service, you know? I'd have took me a break, and that's it. Thank you, Rick. We appreciate you. Ms. Wilkinson, I guess you still have some business for us.
Thank you. I've got the right number there. I'll wait for them to get there. I've given one to the county clerk and to the mayor, and Sherry has one there. Are there enough? We're one short? Ah, thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. So I'm here tonight on your annual report on the public records policy that you adopted as a commission, and it runs from May through the end of the year. So, or let me rephrase that. It was effective May 2017. What I did this year is I thought it would be interesting for your benefit. This is short and sweet. We're always available to answer any questions that you might have. But I thought that it would be interesting for you to be able to see, looking at a snapshot, I just went year by year, May 2017 through May 2021, and kind of noodled into the individual years to see where the changes were. So, big picture, what is a public record under Tennessee law? A public record is defined very broadly under the law, and it's without regard to whether it exists in a file drawer, electronically, on a computer, or abstractly in the cloud. If a record is made or received pursuant to law or ordinance, or in connection with the transaction of official business by any governmental entity, it's a public record. And if it's a public record, it is presumed to be open. And so then something has to take it out of being open, and that would be an exemption under the law. There are 500 or so that have been recognized, and then in addition to that, there are what I will say common law privileges that cannot be trumped by the statute, and that's why it requires legal review. So before any response goes out of the county attorney's office, it's reviewed for privilege if there's something in there that should be redacted. Washington County adopted its policy in 2017 using a form that had been provided by the Comptroller's Office. I think that was an excellent choice. The County Attorney's Office continues to enjoy the benefits of that relationship. It's their policy, they're familiar with it. We have a great relationship, I think, with the Open Records Council and the Comptroller's Office. They're very helpful to us. They provide a lot of services, and the law has not changed significantly over the number of years here recently. So managing this responsibility does take unique training and experience, and that's why I think it was designated to the county attorney's office. just a reminder, y'all as commissioners, and I think it's important for the citizens of Washington County to know, y'all as commissioners, put yourself in the same position as a citizen. You have not asked for any special privilege. I think we take an email from you rather than the form sometimes, just out of professional courtesy, because we know that you're citizens, et cetera. But you keep yourself in that same position, and I think that that is good leadership that the community should be aware of. Big picture and the policy requests that we report to you annually. So I looked at what have we had for issues, and would we request any changes. We dug in pretty deep with the Rules Committee in 2018 and 2019 and made no recommendations for changes after stepping through all of that in great detail. But when you look at some of the changes that we've had, we have a new website, and the mayor's office and the communications director have taken our requests to put the information forward the way that we would appreciate it. And what came from that process was we noticed that we were getting requests going to different offices, so it was kind of an interesting way to see how record requests were coming to the county. When we had the new website, we actually started getting people standing in the doorway, because they were still trying to navigate their way. So it was actually, there's a silver lining to that, because you start to see how people are requesting information. So I'm meeting with the Public Records Council, Open Records Council at the Comptroller's Office at a conference this week. If anybody has any special questions or anything like that, I'd be happy to take them to him. But big picture, I just would direct your attention to this graph that I put in here. This is not super scientific. This is just me going through and creating something so that you could look at it. The first year that the policy was in effect, the county had 72 requests for public records, and then it dropped to 51 the following year. So I wondered why was that, and I think the primary reason was that at that time the county attorney's office also handled requests that were submitted to the Board of Education. Big difference then. So you had more than one office. Now it's only Washington County. So then what's the difference between 2018-19, 19-20? Well, you have COVID. And so with COVID, business stopped, et cetera, so you see that. So really, where we are now from 2020 to 2021, you're still in a COVID period, but you can see that there's an increase. But for the COVID slowdown, I think we would have been well above what we normally see. Types of requests that we get a lot from the press. We get some from vendors who want to see who the county does business with because maybe they'd like to do some business. We get requests from citizens. We get requests from commissioners. And we do not look at why somebody wants the information. So the process, so that you know, is that it comes to the county attorney's office as the coordinator. We determine what office it would go to, who holds that record. Doesn't mean who wrote it. It means who would be holding it, who's that custodian. Then we have 7 business days to turn it around. So we can't control when it comes in. It seems like it always comes during packet week. Teresa Stutz manages all of that. I think you're familiar with her work. She turns it around very quickly. It's very rare that we ask for an extension, but if the custodian of records needs it, we're happy to do that. Teresa, I know we talked about this beforehand, but have I left out anything that you would add for the commissioners to get a better understanding of public records being open in the state of Tennessee? I think it's interesting, we do get some that are not Tennessee citizens. So I looked at who they are, and they tend to be commercial use. And more often than not, they want to produce a movie or something about a notorious case or what they view to be, an interesting something that happened at district court. And I wondered about that when I was thinking, well, is that something, that the county, we should recommend as a change? And I've seen that for the most part, when they're not citizens of Tennessee, if they do have business with the county, if it's a will or something like that, they find another way through the circuit clerk or the chancery court or the clerk and master. They do find access to the record. So I think for your benefit, understanding, I would not request a change in the policy. I think that people who have business with the county or in the state are able to access these records, and you're meeting the standards of transparent government, and that is your obligation with these records, that being public, be open to the public. So does anybody have any questions, or can I clear up anything that I might have made gray or muddy in my efforts to step you through it? All right, well, I thank you kindly.
All right, thank you. All right, our Director of the Health Department report, Director Hodgson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't have a specific report for this evening, and I'll keep it brief. I know we're late, but I know with the public's concern over the Delta variant for COVID, I do want to give you some broad strokes on what we're seeing right now in my world. As you may have heard already, cases, test positivity rates, that kind of thing are all trending upward. Hospitalizations are trending upward. We do know that the Delta variant's out there. CDC is estimating now greater than 50% of the cases in the United States are probably Delta variant. We don't know that to be absolute fact because we don't test every case that comes through. But matter of fact, we test very few cases for the actual type of variant of COVID that it is in positive cases. So best estimates from the CDC, though, it's widespread. One thing to note, I just got this number from the RO this morning. 97% of the cases that we're seeing in hospitals in Tennessee right now are unvaccinated people. So while we are seeing an uptick in cases and we are seeing an uptick in hospitalizations, we're seeing that in unvaccinated folks. Around here in Washington County, we're still doing very well with vaccine. We were the 6th county in the state to go over 50% with at least one dose. We're at 50.5% now, and 46.5% are completely vaccinated in Washington County. So we are maintaining our spot month after month in the number 6 position in the state. So we are continuing to increase our numbers every month. Having said that, we're looking at 133 active cases right now. Daily case rates are climbing a little bit, and we saw a similar trend now that we're in our second summer with COVID in front of us. We saw a similar trend last year, July into August. We saw a little uptick. We're seeing the same thing this year. And with that, I'll ask for any questions.
Commissioner Davenport.
This virus has no boundaries, and it's great that Washington County, its numbers are continuing to go up in vaccinations. Where is our counties around us, Sullivan County being the largest, just roughly, where do they stand?
I don't have hard numbers on those counties. Regionally, we are number 1, Washington County. So Sullivan County is behind us. Unicoi was number 2 for a while. Last time I looked at their numbers, they're not really low, but they're not where we are for certain. So the counties, if I had to speak to the other counties in general, I'd say that they're across the board, they're all lower than we are.
45%? I'm sorry, I know you're trying to avoid that.
I was going to say, well, I'm just trying to work off memory. It goes anywhere from mid-30s into the 40s. And with, like I said, Unicoi was giving us a run for our money there for a little while. We had a little friendly competition going there, but we were able to outpace them.
How do the symptoms of the Delta variant from this COVID-19? I know it's part of it, but.
It's hard to tell, just because when we're looking at COVID, it's just COVID. When we're looking, from my standpoint anyway, it's just COVID. We're not really parsing out the Delta variant and the way that it's presenting. I know folks are. I've got lots of people who look at this across the state. The only thing that I've heard anecdotally recently is that some of these cases are presenting with more cold-like symptoms, sore throat, congestion, that kind of thing. Not so much the telltale, spike in a fever, body aches, coughing, that kind of thing. So we are seeing, anecdotally, we're seeing a little bit of a difference. Can't really tell you why. I don't know if it's because of the effectiveness of the vaccine or if it's because it's a new variant. Still too early to tell.
Commissioner Jones.
Thanks for being here tonight. How are operations in the health department, and is there anything we can do to just support you all during, I can't imagine I know a lot of your staff had to retool their jobs and have been working in all kinds of different roles, and for many of us, things have sort of kind of started getting back to normal, but I don't think, I'd like to know from you, like, are things starting to get back to normal, or are you still stretched, and is there anything that we can do to offer support?
We are stretched only because we're trying to do everything. The demand by COVID actually is reducing quite a bit, and reestablishing that health department is our priority at the moment. When it comes to, we've got COVID, we know we've got COVID, we're going to continue to deal with that, but we're trying to get our doors back open again so we can help folks of Washington County get the health care that they're looking for. We have had several things change as a result of COVID, so as we open back up, we're doing some of that under new rules, and we're getting all that in hand while we put together our staff, make sure that we all know what we're doing. For some of us, some of my folks, it's been a year and a half since they really have been hip deep in their primary jobs. So getting those educations back up, making sure that we've got the latest, and as guidance changes, we're looking at everything from OSHA guidance through the future of COVID guidance, and how we're going to keep that all in mind as we reopen the health department. But we're well on our way. We have every intention of getting back to as close to normal as we can.
Just a follow-up question to that, any concerns about the flu vaccine and trying to kind of dual purpose COVID and flu? Because it seems like the flu could be a genuine threat this year, even though because we kind of passed over last season, but.
It's an interesting concept. It was flat. The flu virus, showed almost like flatline last year, and, you can kind of guess at why that might have been. We're all hunkered down, we're all wearing masks. There's not a lot of transmissibility probably. So, but yes, we did see something very unique last year with the flu, so we're all watching that this year. We do have every intention of getting back in, giving the flu vaccines, doing everything as we would have in any other year. It's unclear how we're going to stack that with COVID. Last year we were sort of all locked down and we didn't have the vaccine at that point, so this year's going to be a bit different in that respect. But we're definitely watching for that. We're discussing how we're going to go about doing that, but right now that's part of getting back to what normal looks like for us, is getting everybody vaccinated back in school.
Thank you.
Do you hear that our COVID booster will be coming soon, Dr. Hodgin, or is it just around the corner?
So the only thing I've heard in reference to a booster was in the news. And I believe it was Pfizer that came out and said, hey, we're looking at possibly having a booster for this thing. And the next thing I saw just a few days later was the CDC said, we really don't think you need one. And that's the last I heard of that. So your guess is as good as mine at this point in the way of a booster.
I'm sure you'll let us know.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you for being here tonight.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our Director of Schools report. Director Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. Just make it quick. Just today was our first day our teachers returned. So we had a day long of professional learning at Daniel Boone High School. It seemed to be everyone was excited and looking forward to next week, August 2nd, when our students report back and we begin our school year. So looking forward to that. We're still seeing enrollment, so numbers are continuing to creep up every day, and reports from principals about monitoring their class size ratios and needs as we need to make decisions if we need to, either move personnel or add positions. So we'll be watching that over the next 20 days probably, but especially these next 2 weeks with enrollment this week and then actual school starting next week. And then we're working towards our American Recovery Plan Act, ESSER dollars, Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief Fund. The third round, 3.0, our application is due to the state, or all districts are due to the state by the end of August. We're working on a timeline to present our board with a plan, our application to be approved next week, August 5th board meeting, so we can send that on to the state the next day for their review and hopefully approval. And then I'll be sending some items to the Health, Education, and Welfare Committee for their consideration, and some projects to potentially access the education capital funds, and work through that process. If there are any questions for me this evening, if not, I know you've had a long night.
I think I'm ready for school to get started back. I think the kids are.
We'll start there, and we'll continue, of course, to monitor the situation with COVID. I may have deservedly so got some shots about saying normal, trying to return to school normal with our protocols, but normal is really what everybody would like to see, but we have to continue to monitor the data, and we have to be prepared to make adjustments in our protocols if the information dictates that. But we want to start out as close to normal as we can.
All right, that sounds great. Any questions for Director Boyd? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right, the Commercial, Industrial, and Agricultural Committee, Commissioner Carriger is out this evening. Commissioner Tester?
Vice Chair, I'll fill in for Commissioner Carriger. The meeting on July 8th, we had a good meeting. The minutes are on page 93. And we had one item which resulted in a resolution. That's resolution number 210707. It's on page 94 of your packet, and had to do with Project STAMP. And I saw Alicia come in, so Mr. Chairman, if it would be appropriate, I would like to invite her up to talk about that.
Absolutely. Alicia, if you want to come forward to the podium, please.
Thank you all for having me here this evening. So this resolution pertains to Project STAMP, and it's about a potential expansion for them. I'm happy to answer any specific questions you might have.
How far along is the project?
It's getting pretty close. I expect that we'll know something definitively within weeks.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out to the commissioners that there's no abatement for this one. It's in the resolution, but phase 3 is you would be delegating the authority for the mayor to execute a deed, which would transfer the property to the IDB so that it could enter into an option agreement. There is no incentive at this time. This would be so that the company would be able to, if it was able to expand, it would just be buying that property under the terms of the option agreement. I want to be really sure that we're clear I think it is in the writing of the resolution, that there is no abatement there. Remember that your ability to sell property as a county has, only what the law has set out, and this is one of the vehicles through the IDB. So there's no abatement, there's no pilot. It is solely the conveyance of property and the authority to enter into that option agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Commissioner Ford?
How much land are you talking about? I've not seen the amounts what I'm talking about.
It's our 25-acre site that is on the back side of the building at 115 Precision, so behind that former ALO facility. It's that 25-acre site.
There's no project going on tap right now?
No, sir. And it does have it's a 3-year option. They have the right to terminate it at any time. And then once they do exercise the option, so the option itself is not transferable, so they can't, sell it to or give it to another entity. So it's non-transferable, but after they exercise the option, the terms are that they'll have a site plans approved by the county within 12 months of them exercising their option, and within 24 months, they'll have constructed a manufacturing facility of a minimum of 75,000 square feet. If they don't do those two things, then the county has the ability to purchase the property back at the same price that it was sold to them.
Yes, sir, Commissioner. Go ahead.
One other question I had. If something went wrong and it didn't go through, then the land that we're prescribing here tonight, giving it to ID, to the board, that wouldn't come back to the county in case it fell through, but it's still stayed. No clause for that, is there?
It stays with the IDB if the company does not exercise the option.
That's what I was wondering.
All right. Any further questions for Alicia? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made to approve the resolution by Commissioner Cate. We have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Wheeler?
Is there a reason that it stays with IDB?
I'll have to defer that to the county attorney.
I didn't hear the question.
Is there a reason that it stays with the IDB rather than coming back to the county if the program doesn't go through?
That actually is not a term that's been expressly discussed. And the way it's currently worded would be that it would go to the IDB for that option agreement.
But if the company doesn't exercise the option, then the property is with the IDB, so the IDB would have to...
It would have to be conveyed back, but it hasn't been a term negotiated that it has to stay with the IDB is what I meant. If that was a condition for it to come back to the county if the option wasn't exercised, we're still working through all of those terms. And that's a term that I think could be discussed.
Commissioner Ford?
I'm for progress. I'm for jobs. But that's a little shaky to me. I couldn't vote for that without that clause they put in that contract. But that's a considerable amount of money, 25 acres, 23 acres. And I was open-ended, I couldn't vote for that. Thank you.
We have a motion and second to approve the resolution. Any questions or further discussion?
Yeah, I kind of have a question as well. So, because I'm hearing two different things, I'm kind of hearing it comes back to the county if the deal doesn't go through. And then I'm hearing, no, it would not. I mean, I just don't know where we are.
Because I'm sorry.
No, please go right ahead.
Okay, so the option agreement would be between the company and the Industrial Development Board. So if the company does not exercise the option, it stays with the Industrial Development Board. The property does, the agreement does. That's not to say that the IDB wouldn't convey it back to the county, but, and please step in.
And not to put Alicia Summers in the point of negotiating all of that. Just when you look at the lineup of where we are right now, of the discussions, the option agreement is still in bullet point form. And if the delegation of authority needs to have the understanding that if the option is not exercised, that it would come back. The IDB currently does not have assets, nor is it in the business of holding assets. So it would surprise me that the IDB would want to maintain that property. The authority that's being delegated is for Project Stamp Phase 3. And I think that I'm hearing from this commission that it wants that delegated authority to be limited with that condition, that if the option is not exercised, that it goes back. And I can't imagine that the company, if it doesn't exercise the option, it would have no interest in who owns the property. And so we just haven't gotten to that point in the terms, and I didn't set anything like that in here because we don't have an option agreement in draft yet. And so having this out on the table is really great information because I would want us to have that agreement. And you can amend your resolution if you want to add that, delegate the authority, conditioned that the property revert back to the county, and if the option is not exercised, that's completely within your doing if you would want to amend the resolution as it's currently worded. Is that fair, Ms. Summers? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Ford?
Myself, I'd like to see that done. I'd like to amend the resolution tonight, that if for some reason it doesn't go through, that it reverts back to the county. We're talking about quite a bit of some money if it don't work out. I hope it does.
All right. Do a second on the amendment?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Edens, that this property would return back to the county if it is not, if the deal is not complete. All right, any discussion on the amendment? Questions?
Call the question.
Question's been called. Let's go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. We'll be voting on the amendment. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, and the amendment passes. All right, we'll be back to the resolution as amended. Any questions or discussion on that resolution as amended? Seeing none, question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Yes, we have just become present again. All right, we're ready to cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. 11 yes, 1 no, 3 absent. The resolution passes. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you for all you do. Anything else, Commissioner Tester?
That's it, Mr. Chairman, unless anybody has any other questions.
Commissioner Tester? Going on to the County on Property Committee, Commissioner Carriger is not here. Who is our Vice Chairman on County on Property?
Carriger is the chairman of County Owned Property.
Who is the Vice Chairman? Commissioner Jones, is that you?
Sure it's not me, but I would be happy to report
You are on that committee though, aren't you?
on that committee.
Absolutely.
Review the minutes for the meeting that I attended on June 22nd. In that meeting, we actually took a little driving tour of 4 properties around the county, and it was wonderful and very informative, and you can find those properties on page 99. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Commissioner Jones? Seeing none, thank you for the report, Commissioner Jones. I appreciate you doing that. Employee Compensation and Benefits Committee. I served as, yes ma'am, it is. I served as chairman on that. You can review our minutes on the July the 8th meeting. We did have one resolution, that was Resolution 210708, is a resolution approving renewal of the leased commercial space for the Washington County Employee Health Clinic. It can be found on page 102. That comes in the form of a motion from the committee, seconded by Commissioner Davenport to approve the resolution. Any questions or discussion?
Yeah.
Commissioner Ford?
Are we talking about a year, 3 years?
3, I think it was 3 years to complete that out, wasn't it?
Well, I seen 3 in that resolution. 1 year, 3
Allison, was the resolution 3 years?
23 or 5.
Let me double check, excuse me. But look at the paragraph, I'm just going to make sure I'm speaking clearly, because it's the last year on the second, third year, 3 years, right? There were 3 3-year terms. This is the last 1 year on the second of 3 years, and then there's a third 3-year term that's being renewed with this, so it's for a total of 4 years. So,
That's why I was so confused, I couldn't understand if it's 1 year, 3 years, 4 years.
so it's 4 years, but when you look at the, and this is important for the purchasing director, 1 year is left over on the current lease, so it's on the budget for that amount. The next 3 years will be at an increase under the RFP that was there, and so that'll be the third term. So it's a 4-year term
So,
total.
I did read it. I could what it's 1, 3, or 4.
All right, so any further questions or discussion?
I'm not call for the question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, would you switch us to the voting screen, please? Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. 12 yes, 3 absent, and the resolution passes.
Before we leave that, would you please confirm who made the motion?
It was brought from the recommendation of the committee.
Very good. And was there a second?
A second by Commissioner Davenport.
Thank you all.
All right. The next item is the Rules Committee. Commissioner Tester?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our minutes are on
Page 106 of the packet, we had a good discussion about the budget process that we just came through, and we didn't really reach any decisions or anything in that meeting, but we decided to continue our discussion on until next month. So we will be talking about that again in another week or two on committee day. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Commissioner Tester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item is the Washington County Library Board of Trustees. That's those minutes are in your packet from July 13th. The mayor does serve on that committee. If you have any questions for him, he'll be available after the meeting to answer those. All right, the Budget Committee report, Commissioner Wheeler.
Yes, first you'll find our minutes from June 21st, the budget public hearing on June 21st, the budget workshop. Then on June 21st, our budget meeting. On June 23rd, our budget meeting, and on July 14th, our budget meeting. On page 122, page 125 of your packet. We have 2 additional resolutions besides the one we took up earlier. First is resolution number 21709, resolution authorizing funding from the capital projects funds for purchase and installation of 5 Auger-style trash compactors. This comes as a recommendation from the committee, and I move for its approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Ford to approve the resolution. Questions or discussion? Questions been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. 12 yes, 3 absent, the resolution passes. Commissioner Wheeler?
Yes, our next resolution is resolution number 21710, Resolution amending fiscal year budget 2021-2022 regarding highways FY 2022 business tax. This is found on page 144 of your packet. It comes as a recommendation from the committee, and I move for its approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Kate to approve the resolution. Question, discussion? Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and mark it in. Madam Clerk, you may announce the vote. 12 yes, 0 no, 3 absent. The resolution passes. Commissioner Wheeler?
That concludes our report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Commissioner Wheeler? Seeing none, we'll move right on into notaries. Resolution 210712 is a resolution approving the election of notaries public for appointment and reappointment for Washington County, Tennessee. Do I have a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Ford to approve the resolution, seconded by Commissioner Fitzgerald. Any questions? Discussion? Question?
Call the question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and mark it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 11 yes, 1 abstains, 3 absent, and the resolution passes. Next cutoff date and time for next month's County Commission agenda is Thursday, August 12th at 12 noon. And that concludes our report. We have no new business or old business. We have a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Commissioner Huffine to adjourn. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Edens. All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye. All opposed? We're adjourned.